Hello. So today's going to be a patch review. So I'm going to be going over the patch rundown slides from Mortdog's YouTube channel and give my take on it for the people that get their information from my channel. If you subscribe and like my videos, I want to be informative and tell you what's going on with the current state of TFT as well as the current state of units. So whenever there's a patch week at the start of the week, we'll do a patch review. For those of you that are new here, I'd like to say thank you for stopping by. Thank you for all the subscribers. We got a nice little influx of subscribers and new people commenting on videos and stuff like that. I'm really happy for the support. Make sure that if you do enjoy my videos or you watch any of my videos, do like and subscribe because it helps me as a small creator. And I'm super grateful for everybody that stops by to get their information from me. But most importantly, more so than anything else, make sure you subscribe and like Mortdog's videos as well. So the content that I'm doing in this is obviously slides that were prepared from Mortdog for his YouTube channel, and we make sure to subscribe and like to his YouTube channel. I also noticed today that I'm not subscribed. I want to publicly do it today to subscribe it. I have 3 YouTube accounts. This is just the one that I use for my gaming channel. So I'm subscribed on my other accounts that I use for like other stuff, but I'll make sure to show it because I want in my videos to show that I'm also subscribed. So I didn't notice before, so there we go. Now let's actually go through the slides. So we're going to go through them and do them in the same way with our markups as per usual. So system mechanic changes, right? This one's actually kind of big. So this is golems in general. So golems are those little dudes. They have like an eye and they look kind of like this, right? And usually they're the ones that usually have like support items or like the trainer sentinels, the vendor sentinels of the portals. All of these are getting a nerf. They're getting nerfed to their AD, their HP, as well as their ability damage. Now, all of these nerfs are warranted. You might think, okay, well, what does that really matter? It's because there were certain augments that were really, really broken if you didn't know about it. So one of them, for example, was the like you're the carry now. Any of the golem augments, right? Because basically what they would do is they would give you a bunch of items, support items and or emblems and or just having like a really strong golem, and all of those would average like significantly better than most other augments in the game. And part of it was just because you get a free extra unit that did a bunch for your board. It had a bunch of HP, did a bunch of extra damage. Like you can think of it like the same way of like, you know, accomplice or like having 2 support items is a normal prismatic, and that averaged really, really well. Well, if you take those support items and you put them on a golem that also did a bunch of damage and basically worked as a +1 unit on your board, it doesn't take Scooby-Doo to realize that that's really strong. So they're nerfing the golems all in general, and that should help deal with all of the golem related augments specifically being very strong in the current meta. So this is a good change. I think it's warranted. I don't know how big of a change is, but just if you look in terms of AD, usually like a 5 AD nerf is huge. So like having a 10 AD nerf is pretty big in my opinion. So but usually they do off AP damage, but it did get nerfed quite a bit at the 1 and the 2 star level, and then later in the game it's not that changed in terms of its damage, which is nice to see. I think it will make them more balanced. It won't make them like unclickable, if that makes sense. Alright, it's gonna be a big patch. There's gonna be a lot to go through. So first thing, blasters. Blasters all sucked. I think at 1 and 2 star, a 1 and 2 blaster needed a huge buff. This is good. 2 blaster getting a 4% buff. 4 blaster getting a 10% buff. I think this is gonna finally make the Ezreal Hui Varus Smolder line very, very strong. I think that's gonna be very meta, and there's a lot of changes around that. So I think they're trying to address like some of the 4 costs not having like good support and playable boards. It might also make like Hui Ezreal reroll really strong, because like especially for 4 blaster, that's like a huge change, right? If you played 4 blaster, usually if you had like a pyro spat, something like that, I've played, I had a lot of success with it. But even 4 blaster normally was like just on the verge of being really strong. So getting a huge damage amp on the base, and then like there's also the post damage amp that got buffed. So like the 4 blasters seems like what you would probably aim for. So building a board around 4 blasters seems like a good idea. It's also rerollable because there are 4 low cost blasters in the sense of Rumble and Tristana as well. So there might be like some sort of reroll line around those 4 units that becomes really strong because of this, but we'll see. Obviously the quality of the units also matters, so we can't necessarily make a judgment just off the traits. Fairy sucked. So they're buffing 4 and 6 fairy. 4 and 6 fairy, I still don't know if it's playable. It's really hard to tell. It's not that big of a buff to 4 fairy and 6 fairy, but there's a lot of extra armor and HP, right, healing. So maybe 4 fairy becomes meta. The biggest problem with fairy is that it never warrants playing higher. Like on 2 fairy you get the crown. The crown is good, right? 2 fairy was good. You usually can fit in 2 fairy, play around one of the fairy units, get the crown. It's good early, it's good late. It was a good item. They're not nerfing the item itself. They're buffing 6 fairy because 6 fairy is where you get the second item, which is like the queen's guard, whatever they call it. And they're buffing that item a little bit. This makes sense if you're playing 6 fairy. The problem is there's not enough fairy units that are good to play on your board typically. There's not like a good fairy frontline unit, right? The frontline unit is like, sorry, there is one good one. It's Rakan. But that's usually very contested. So you're usually not saying, oh, I'm going to play like 6 fairy around this Rakan. A lot of times you're building another board around it, which is mostly preservers and other stuff. And there's no shared traits within the fairy trait. So a lot of times, like when you're trying to play vertical fairy, a lot of the units are kind of useless. They're just there to give you like the fairy +1, right? If you're playing Tristana and you're not playing Blaster, then you're playing like Lilia, you might not be playing Bastion. You're playing Callista, you have to play multi-striker. It's like there's too much to try and fit in for synergies. So fairy runs into this awkward spot that maybe if they make the vertical really strong, that's why 2 fairy isn't getting that much of a buff, even though fairy generally is weak. But if they make the vertical a little bit stronger, maybe it will make some of the lines worthwhile. So you just pick one, the other ones are just like cannon fodder, and getting the extra item at 6 fairy is enough. I don't really believe in it yet, right? I think these changes are great, but I wouldn't like day one go for it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is busted. We'll see how it works out. I can't tell from this. It doesn't seem big enough for me to know if it's busted for sure. Frost is getting a buff. Frost is pretty bad. It used to be, the reason Frost is so bad is because it was so broken in PBE, I'm pretty sure. Frost used to be like the Giga trait in PBE, and then they nerfed it like halfway through the PBE, and then since then playing vertical Frost hasn't been that great. Buffing Frost is pretty good. There's a lot of Frost enablers. Like there's the Frost Augment that gives you an Eternal Winter. So this might make things really really strong, especially with like the Blaster changes to play around Hui. So I think like this is both AP and AD 5%, so it's actually a lot, right? It's not like 5% like where it's just one specific trait. It's like both of them because Frost gives both AP and AD. So this seems pretty nice. If I do say so myself. I don't know if it's going to be super meta, but it depends on like how the rest of the stuff shakes up. This is a big one, Preserver. So Preserver, they're losing what's it called? 4 Preserver is losing 1% healing, and the other ones are losing around 0.5% healing. So it's a little bit difficult to know how great that is. Preserver used to be one of the most broken ones in the game. So this is obviously like a nerf directed towards that to try and balance the frontline trait. Hopefully we see some Vanguard nerfs. I think Vanguard is extremely busted, or at least nerfs on some of the Vanguard units. We'll see how that kind of plays out. But Preserver has been really strong, and nerfing it a little bit, I don't think it's enough to make it unplayable, but it just won't be as broken as before. Especially with the mana gain. Like 1%, like the 4 Preserver one is the big one. Like these are only by 0.5. But from 7 to 6 and from 8 to 7, it makes it like a lot less of a jump from like, you know, 2 Preserver to 4 Preserver. And then as well as 5 Preserver getting a slight nerf. But Preserver, I think, is still going to be a really, really dominant frontline trait unless they like really axe a lot of those units. They also buffed it in turn of like Preserver ticks. When a unit is mana lock, will grant the mana after the mana lock, which is maybe substantial. We'll see. Depends on what your backline unit is. But basically what this means is like sometimes a unit, when they're casting their ability, after casting their ability, they'll be mana locked. So they made a change now where you get the extra mana from items and just other sources after the mana lock. It will just give it to you. That was like a huge change this set. It's the same with like if you overpass the mana threshold, it doesn't just get wasted. It gets refunded after. So now Preserver works the same way, which it should have worked already. So it's like a buff, but it's like a nerf that we didn't know was there. I think it's like more along the lines of like a bug, if that makes sense. Scholar, they're increasing the mana per auto from 5 to 6. I'm not sure if that makes so much of a difference, but it does make a difference with like somebody like Rise, if I would say so. Like Rise is has a huge mana threshold. You usually want to build something like a Guinsoo and make him build his mana through auto attacks mostly. So if you increase that by 1 each time, there's a chance that it makes him snowball and do a couple more extra casts. So we'll see how that goes. But it doesn't seem like the craziest thing. I don't think playing Vertical Scholar outside of like a very dedicated line was crazy, but it does have good ramifications. Like, it makes Rise really good. It helps Rise a lot. Warrior, they're increasing the damage on the Omnivamp. I think this is good. 4 Warrior was already pretty close. Like, there was 4 Warrior with Preserver synergies that just weren't very good because of Syndra, like, basically would just wreck all of them, as well as like some other units would just wreck them all. Warriors might become a little bit more meta now. I figured that, like, based on like the units themselves, it was a pretty good trait to play, and there was like a pretty nice board. If you watch like EWC, playing around Warriors and Preservers was something that was like one of the highest placing boards that people were playing. So it definitely has good it has like, I'm very optimistic for it, and giving it a buff at the same time as, like, you know, we're gonna get to Syndra nerfs, but nerfing some of the other outliers that were like abnormally strong also helps to make that like a more meta comp, if that makes sense. It could also make like Nyla Kali reroll something meta, but usually with those ones you only play 2. When you're thinking about 4 Warrior, you're thinking about playing Gwen, Katarina, and Fiora. Small trait change, Bastion. Bastion now. Oh, my inking disappeared. Okay, there we go. Bastion, 6 Bastion, a little bit of a buff, and 8 Bastion. 8 Bastion is really like weirdly, like, it's really weird to play around. I played around it once, but I went 5th because there was just too many Syndra players. But 6 Bastion is pretty okay to sometimes play. Bastion itself is pretty weak. I think that not buffing the lower Bastion traits, and like, we'll see if they deal with Vanguard, but I still don't think that like you're ever going to be playing Bastion over Vanguard, excuse me, unless like your board really relies on the Bastion units, because the Vanguard frontline was really strong. Chrono Time Stop, now affected by CC immunity. This is just like when Chrono Time Stop would happen and you had like a QSS, it would still freeze you. I wasn't really confused about it. I thought like Chrono was like a different kind of CC, and that's how it was supposed to work. But now you can bypass Chrono CC with QSS. Okay, cool. That's fine. But nothing really big there. I don't think this makes Bastion broken, but there might be some lines with 6 Bastion, like especially like those lines where you're playing Callista or like a Guinsoo user in the back. There might be a line now where you play 6 Bastion instead, but nothing absurd. 1-cost champions. So they're buffing Jace to have like 25% more AD. I felt like Jace is really strong. Jace reroll with like some other units might be a thing. They didn't adjust Shapeshifter, which I felt like Shapeshifter was pretty weak, but obviously if they buff the Shapeshifter units themselves, the trait might be a little bit more playable. Seraphine, I felt like Seraphine always did like not enough damage, so they're making her mana threshold a little bit lower. That can really help if you're playing towards like vertical mages. There's some niche lines with vertical mages, because when you're playing vertical mages, you really want to hit like 5 mage, and then your max cap is playing 7 mage usually. I'm talking about like Vigor reroll or playing around Nami, just because like the extra AD matters so much and it gives you so much extra damage. So having Seraphine cast a few more times, it might make her a little bit more viable as being like one of the +1 units on that board. A lot of times you'll cap out with 5 mage, and then you'll just throw in a Nora as the 5th mage and replace either Seraphine or Soraka until you like, and then just hold on to 1 copy of them. But you might be more incentivized to keep a leveled up Seraphine or Soraka, if that makes sense. Warwick, this doesn't seem like a big buff, but it's okay. There's a frost change as well, so maybe Warwick reroll is maybe more viable. I think with these changes where it's just 5% and mostly on the 3-star, there's a huge buff. So now 3-star Warwick is going to basically do a lot more damage based on AD, which makes sense. It's cool. That's good. And I think that makes Warwick reroll a lot better. This was a problem I had where how it was so weak and I felt like it was never worth it. But I still think it's going to be locked behind Vampiric Scepter. Right? I think like if you don't know, there's like tech similar to like Gnar reroll last set, where you play Corrupt Vampiric Scepter with the Warwick and then you get towards that. Also, I just realized that I think I'm double inking. Maybe. Okay, I'm gonna stop just in case. is, there we go. So Corrupt Vampiric Scepter, it's like, it's okay, but like what I mean is, like, I think the line of playing Warwick reroll is locked behind the Ornn artifact. I wouldn't really go for it, unless I still wouldn't go for it unless you have like either a really good spot for Warwick, or you start the game with artifact, you have a Warwick, and you hit Vampiric Scepter. It's obviously gonna help your 3-star Warwick, and I think it'll be like a more reliable like top 4 elo conversion, but I don't think it's like something you definitely go for. Lilia, they're making mana buffs. I think that's good. Not for like Lilia as a unit particularly, like Lilia was already like an okay frontline unit. I think this just helps her out to be like a little bit of a better frontline unit. They also did Bastion changes, which are nice. They did Fairy changes, which are nice. You know what this helps? Lilia Hero. Lilia Hero, if you don't know, now maybe you guys are here because like one of my most popular videos, because the way that YouTube works, and I don't know why, is the Lilia Hero augment that I played in PBE. That was in PBE. If you played Lilia Hero in live, I'm very sorry if I made you ever play Lilia Hero in live. It is one of the trash, worst augments in the game. It is so fucking bad. I think it's literally the worst augment. Like, we can check. But having her mana threshold go a little bit better does help with that hero augment. It might make the hero augment a lot better, because basically the whole fairy line and Bastion line has been buffs, and now Lilia's getting a buff, so it might make her hero augment a lot more viable. Her hero augment was just severely underpowered. Like if we go on augments and we sort by placement and we go all the way to the bottom of the list, I'm pretty sure we'll find her right at the bottom. Let's scroll all the way down. Yeah, there she is, Lilia Hero Augment. One of the worst ones in the game, along with What the Forge and Arcane Conduit. Arcane Conduit, so, you know, we better see some changes to these ones, like Draconic Mastery, like all of this shit, you know? Scholar Crowns are pretty bad. They buff Scholar, you know, maybe you play towards 6 Scholar, but all of this shit is bad. So, you know, yeah, we'll see how it gets there. And then this is something else I wanted to point out. So, Soraka getting buffs, and these seem quite substantial, like, just in terms of numbers. Like, spell damage is huge with Soraka. She also does healing. I've seen, I don't know exactly how to describe it, because I don't know the line, so I can't tell you. I'm gonna try it out and study it more to see if I can figure out what's going on. But even last set, last patch, like the current patch we're on, Soraka 3 in some situations had like an insane win rate. And I think it's like along the lines of you play Mage with Sugarcraft and you keep in the Soraka, and then the Soraka with the Sugarcraft scaling, and you play like that line, because that's like usually when you're thinking Sugarcraft, you're playing around Jinx, and if you can't play around Jinx, you play around like Gwen, and then if you can't play around Gwen, you play around Bard. But I saw a line where you play around Soraka and Sugarcraft with mages, so you play vertical mage, and Soraka 3 was like giga win con. Like, it was like you went like in the 2s, like it was but obviously like the stats are very skewed. Like, it's not like it's because you had other crazy shit on your board that it was very high roll. But like there was a substantial amount of games with Soraka 3 that were like averaging like above 4.0, and I couldn't understand it, so I said I'll figure it out another day. Now they're buffing Soraka, so I don't know, there might be like a problem with the unit. There might be like a Soraka carry meta thing going on. I don't know. I'm just warning you guys about it ahead of time, because if it starts happening, I don't want you guys to be like, where did this come from? This came out of nowhere. It's like I saw some crazy shit in the stats. I don't know what it is. I don't understand it. I couldn't make sense of it, and I don't know what's gonna happen. So I'm kind of scared, but not really, but maybe. Just be warned, okay? We'll see what happens. Ahri buffs. Ahri buffs are scary. A lot of times when you're playing like Zoe reroll, so if you think about Zoe reroll line, that's the line where you're playing like 4 Scholar, you're playing Zoe with Witchcraft, and you play around Rise and Tarek and those units. A lot of times the win con is playing around Ahri 3. I really don't like Ahri as a unit. I wanted to like her. I thought she was really cool in beta. I thought she was really cool coming out of beta. She's getting huge buffs, right? Especially to her 3-star. Her 3-star is getting buffed like 45%, and she already did a shit ton of damage, and she does a bunch of true damage as well. Her spell damage is getting not as much. Her spell true damage isn't getting that much of a buff, but like these are substantial changes. So Ahri 3 is going to be very strong. And usually when you're playing around that Zoe line, a lot of times your win con is Ahri 3. A lot of people don't think about that. They think like get Zoe, get Rise. That's the way I kind of thought about it. But if you look at the stats, the main way that you convert like a Zoe reroll to a win is by getting an RE3. The problem with Ari, this is the reason I don't like Ari, is that she can miss really hard. Her cast, like when she shoots it, it goes really slow. I would have like, instead of seeing these damage buffs, I would have liked to see like a speed buff on the ball, right? Because when that ball misses so many times, and I've played around Ari reroll one time, and I said never again, because I lost like 3 or 4 fights because she whiffed like 4 or 5 times. And I understand there's like placing and positioning. A lot of times you're not trying to play Ari to snipe certain units. You're trying to play Ari to like hit multiple frontline units. So you're trying to position your front line to hit multiple frontline units to like shred through everybody, because she doesn't have reduction if she hits multiple units, which is really big. So she's going to be broken, but I'm worried about certain matchups are going to be losing matchups for her all the time. And I don't like comps like that, because it's like you can hit everything and then you'll still might lose to somebody. Obviously, like those are like more melee focused comps, and we'll see if they like work out. Something like Nyla, right? If Ari versus Nyla, Nyla will win, because Nyla just jumps around and Ari's gonna whiff, right? That's my experience of it. So we'll see how it works out. I'm just saying she is broken. It will be viable. There will be Ari reroll. None of that is false. These are huge changes. She will be strong as shit. She will be maybe not broken, but she'll be like very fucking strong, right? It's gonna be a line to know. I'm just saying, I don't like it because I don't like the fact that she misses. That's just not my play style. It's annoying to me. Kassadin nerfs. These seem pretty substantial, right? 3-star getting 10% less spell stacking damage. Less spell stacking damage. And his shield is going down by like 60%. That's actually pretty big. The thing about Kassadin that was broken wasn't that Kassadin did a bunch of damage. It wasn't that Kassadin and multi-strikers and blah, blah, blah. The thing about Kassadin that was really broken was because he had this stacking spell damage and he had this spell shield, he was very flexible with his items. You were easy to put it was easy to put pretty much anything on Kassadin, right? Gwinsu wasn't even that good. You can put Gwinsu on Kassadin. You can put QSS on Kassadin. You can put Bloodthirst on Kassadin. You can put Hodge on Kassadin. You can put Giant Slayer on Kassadin. You can put Guardbreak on Kassadin. Like every item that you can make, you can put on Kassadin. So it made the line very easy to commit to, because a lot of times when you're committing to a reroll, you're committing to it very early, and then there's a lot of other lines where you get griefed by your items. You could put any items on Kassadin because he'll scale up his damage with the spell stacking damage. So if you put tanky items on him, he'll have damage anyways because he'll just live longer and then he'll stack the damage. And the spell shield also helped him live long enough. So because he already had enough frontline ability in his kit, he was very easy to put any items on. If you put pure damage items on him, he'd just burst down the opponents. If you put a bunch of tanky items on him, he'd just stay alive long enough and then burst down his opponents. It helped them. So nerfing both elements of this makes it so that now you might have to be more forced to play certain items to unlock his potential, and that hurts the comp a lot, because then you can't itemize the other units and you can't like play around multiple carries, and then it just kind of crumbles in its own like soot, you know, just falls apart. Galio was kind of fucking annoying because this guy never did anything. I felt like you just played him because he was Vanguard, but I felt like most of the time this Galio just died every single time, especially like when you play like mage front lines. Like Galio 3 was always fake. I stopped even rolling for Galio 3 a lot of times. Now he's getting a decent buffs. 5% ability damage reductions, pretty okay. I'm kind of down for it. So maybe Galio will be a little bit better as a front line. Obviously, I don't like seeing Vanguards getting buffed, but you know, it is what it is. Kog'Maw nerfs, I'm sure all of you hate Kog'Maw, so it's fine. 2-star and 3-star Kog'Maw aren't getting that big of a nerf. Like 2-star Kog'Maw is pretty good. 3-star Kog'Maw is pretty good. I like that because it means you can still play him as an item holder. Your early game is very similar. But 3-star is getting a huge axing, right? I think everybody kind of knew that, right? This was gonna happen no matter what. But yeah, I think that's fine. Kog'Maw was strong. I think this warrants getting a nerf. I think it makes the line less forceable. I think now you have to rely on having that dual carry to keep up your damage in terms of Jinx and Olaf, or like 4 Hunter or something like that. The thing that's really important to note is that they didn't nerf 2-star Kog'Maw by 1-star Kog'Maw is around the same. 2-star Kog'Maw is only nerfed by like 20%. So it makes it a little bit less stable, but I think it's still playable as a unit. It's not like you just don't click Kog'Maw. So I like that they didn't nerf the 2-star that much. I would have liked it if they just didn't nerf 2-star Kog'Maw at all, and just made like 3-star Kog'Maw really unviable, because then it makes the line a little bit more nice. But now you might just use Kog'Maw as an item holder for instead of like strictly a reroll focus. They didn't nerf Tristana either, and they buffed Blaster, so you might play the Kog'Maw reroll line and focus on Tristana now. But we'll see. Maybe next slide they nerf Tristana. Who knows? Shyvana. So Shyvana, they're making her do more damage. They made it scaled off of less HP, but start with more AP. I think the main thing with Shyvana is that they don't want her to be super tanky, and that's like a big thing about her. I felt like she wasn't really a good tank. They want her to be more of like a fighter. They want her to be more of like a melee AP fighter unit, which I think makes sense as well. It's just like, you know, you can't rely on her as a front line. She's more like a damage unit. We'll see how it works out. I don't have faith in the Shyvana unit. I feel like sometimes she does like everything and she's like broken on the board, and then sometimes she just like fucking jumps and she dies and it's just over. I like dragons being in like an awkward spot, because if dragons are really strong, everybody will go for dragon, because dragon is just free anti-heal. Right now people aren't really abusing dragons for anti-heal, because mostly it was a reroll meta. People were playing around like lower cost units, but when you get to more flexible boards, these units are going to be like hotly contested, because it's really easy to just fit in anti-heal with dragon as a trait. So you usually just play 2 dragon, synergize with your board, in order to provide anti-heal. A big example was with blasters. When you're playing around Varus, you would do this, because then you just don't have to build anti-heal, and you can itemize Nasus and Varus differently because of it. If the dragon units are busted, then everybody's going to be playing them for anti-heal, and they do a bunch of damage. It's like, I don't like that situation. So I prefer it when they're like, you know, not like, utility units should never be like crazy. And that brings us to the big one. I'm sure all of you have been waiting for this part in the video. Hello YouTube, hello everybody. It's time. The reckoning, the banhammer, the Ragnarok, whatever you want to call it. Syndra, she gone. Holy fuck. I don't think, like, I played TFT in set 9.5. I don't know anybody here was from set 9.5. If you were in set 9.5, I want you to put like a pray emoji and say I was there during the multicasters. Right? That's what I want. I want a pray emoji in the YouTube comments saying I was there during multicasters. Because in multicasters, they didn't even get nerfed this bad. And like, I know people are bitching about Syndra. You should have seen set 9.5. They released this thing with multicasters, and they were like fucking insane. And then they buffed them, and the entire meta, I shit you not, you know how everybody plays Syndra in this game, and it's like, oh, Syndra's busted. When it was 9.5, it makes Syndra look like a cakewalk, because they had this fucking reroll comp. I shit you not, it was like 7 people were playing it at the same time, and they were all getting top 7. It was fucking ridiculous. It was so bad in 9.5. Anyways, I digress. I've never seen somebody gutted this much. Let's go through everything. Number 1, spell damage. 20%, 30%, and then 40% on the 3-star. That's a lot of decrease in her damage. Her damage already isn't like the highest in the game. It was very high, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like the highest in the game. It was just like in combination with all the other stuff. The splash spell damage down by a lot too. So she got nerfed in both types of damage. That's insane, right? Then 1 second of cast time. That is insane. So if you don't know, when she's casting, the reason you built attack speed on her was because she was in Canter, right? So number 1, like putting a Gwynsu on Syndra became Bis, right? The reason that putting attack speed on Syndra was good was because she would just attack really fast. In Canter would scale her damage, because every time you attack you gain more AP, so she would get a bunch of damage and AP from that. And then she had this low cast time, so she would just like instantly like shoot out bullets, right? She would keep casting repeatedly, and when she would cast, she would scale, and when she would scale, she'd be strong later. They also decreased the rift damage. Basically every aspect of her kit got nerfed. I don't even know if 3-star Syndra is gonna be like a comp anymore if you're uncontested, right? But the days are gone of everybody playing Syndra because she's Syndra. I think Syndra is still a unit because Syndra's utility, right? She provides shred. And this is the main thing, right? When you have a unit that provides shred, like it provides how do I phrase it? If you have a unit that provides you with utility, right? If she's shredding and hitting multiple units to reduce their MR, that's something that helps your whole board do extra damage. She shouldn't be doing an insane amount of work and insane amount of damage. And obviously they nerfed her, and this is good. So I don't think it's gonna be like everybody plays Syndra anymore. I think maybe if you have a Syndra and you have good Syndra items and you have the best Syndra spot ever, you can probably play Syndra reroll still and get a top 4. But it's not going to be like the way it was. She's not going to wipe out the board. All those fights that make Syndra, like, you know, like, I'm sure you've played Syndra and you see those fights where it's like, oh, I just barely won. And those barely win fights keep your win streak. And you're like, haha, Syndra's broken. And you just kill everything on the board in one fell swoop. None of that's going to happen anymore. And because that's not going to happen, like, a lot of times you're going to lose a bunch of HP. And it's going to convert a lot of those positions where you're going, like, 1, 2, 3, 4 into, like, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? But good changes. She should have never been broken on launch. If she's the shred unit, right? If she's the whenever there's a utility unit, I strongly believe utility units should never be super strong. But obviously, like I said in my tier list video, and I say it all the time, I say it every day. You know, I don't complain too much about Syndra because they tried. It was hard to know how strong she was gonna be. I don't like living in the world where the devs are like, you know, it was okay. Like, you know, like, we're not trying to, like, dick suck the devs or anything like that, or whatever part they have. At the same time, we're not trying to, like, overblow it and say, how could they have done something so stupid? You know, we could have hired anybody. Anybody would have been a better dev. It's like, no, there's a middle ground, and the middle ground was they nerfed her like four times, I think. Maybe it was 3 times. They nerfed her a bunch from PBE going into live. Obviously, it didn't work out. She was on release. She was really busted. A lot of people just had a miserable last 2 weeks. But it's over, and they're fixing it, and, you know, it's fine. Right? So both sides, you know, there's mistakes on both sides. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It wasn't even that bad. There's been worse TFT patches than the last 2 weeks. I guarantee you. So, you know, whatever. It never really bothered me that much. The only time it bothered me was when people would hard force it when I had a good spot for Syndra, because then it was just annoying to play the game. Other than that, it's fine. Katarina buffs. Katarina felt really strong. 1-star and 2-star Katarina is an insane item holder into late game. 3-star Katarina has like a huge damage buff. I think that she will be broken with the warrior changes, because the warrior line, you always want to play Katarina. You play like warriors with preservers, and then you put in like one of each of the preserver units. So you put in Rakan. So you play like Gwen, and then you play Gwen and Bard. You play Fiora and Morgana, and you play Katarina and Rakan. So each unit that is in the warrior line has an associated preserver with a 2 trait. So Katarina will get Fairy Crown, and the Rakan will get the preserver. Gwen will have her scaling from Sugarcraft, and that will be with Gwen, right? And that will be a preserver. And then Morgana will give Witchcraft with Fiora. That's how the warrior line kind of worked. And then the last one, you kind of had free reign over the last 2 units. Usually you just play like Zillion and Nyla, or Zillion and some other warrior. But it's totally fine. I think that she's going to be really, really strong as a meta unit now. I think that she was already very strong. The problem was just like gatekeeping from some of the more ridiculous comps. She does a huge amount of damage. Hodge, JG, plus Fairy Crown. That's her build, probably. And she's going to be really good. Watch out for this. Katarina reroll will be a thing. There's no way it's not with this much of a buff to 3-star Katarina. And the buffs to warriors as well. Wukong. I don't want to harp about this. This shouldn't be happening, in my opinion. What the fuck? Wukong buffs? Wukong's fucking busted. If you played it with a Wukong recently, I'm sure you've seen Wukong be fucking insane. Now, they did nerf Preserver, but I don't think they nerfed it enough to warrant Wukong buffs. Now, why the fuck is Wukong getting buffed? I think they made a mistake here. I think that the way Riot kind of works, which kind of sucks, which I don't understand why they don't fix the game differently, but because Riot TFT is locked in with the League client, they have to submit their patches and what changes they're doing ahead of time. So, and then that sometimes they do B patches, and that's why they do B patches, because they're allowed to do like an emergency B patch if they have to. But because it's tied with like the Riot client, they have to like submit on the same schedule as like the league schedule. And sometimes that fucks things up, because with TFT, like, you know, we might discover something's broken later and the devs already have to lock in what the patches are. See, like right now the patch is on Wednesday and this slideshow is already made. So that means they had to decide on what to nerf and how to nerf it, like, you know, at least a day or two before this presentation was made for us, the consumers, to see. So it makes sense. You know, Wukong is something that's been picking up steam very recently. But I don't understand why systematically we can't just have a separate TFT client. I don't give a fuck if like it's gonna hurt the game base because the league players switch over to TFT. It's like, I don't get it. I think the game's big enough that we shouldn't be tied to like these patch schedules, or just change the culture or how it, I don't know. This is dumb to me, because I think that even in the presentation, I think when Mortdog was talking about this, he kind of seemed like, obviously this is like meta gaming or whatever, he was saying like, hey, you know, don't worry, we didn't like touch 3-star Wukong, it won't be that bad, you know. Like, I think there's an air of like, this one's one of those things that shouldn't be happening, if I'm being honest here. And I don't know, I don't agree with this, but that's just me. My opinion. Should be fine, hopefully. We gotta trust the devs, trust that they know what's good for us, and, you know, just be happy about it, right? It'll be okay. You know, Syndra's gone, it'll be fine. 4-cost jams. Karma, the big nerf that they give to her is no longer heals. That's something that Karma did that a lot of people didn't realize. When she killed a unit, it would heal adjacent allies. So, I tried experimenting around this, trying to position my units in different ways to try and prevent the healing as much. It's what made Karma Preservers really good. It what made Karma Warriors really good, right? Like, a lot of these lines where you have somebody dive the back line and then they die and Karma does damage, the extra healing was huge. So removing the extra healing from the Karma, I think that's great. She already did enough as is. I don't think the healing necessarily was like the broken part of her. But it's a big nerf. It removes a whole part of her kit. A lot of people didn't know about, but it makes the front line really tanky. It made the back line dives really strong. It just helped out a lot of the boards. So good Karma changes. Karma was kind of dominant. I still think she will be dominant, but obviously they're nerfing Syndra by a lot. So you won't have like the dual damage outcome of Karma with Syndra anymore. Even as a Syndra 2 or a Syndra 3 won't have that same level of damage anymore. So it makes it so that the whole line itself kind of might crumble. So even any nerf to Karma probably helps in making the other 4 costs a little bit viable. Tom Kench, HP buff. I don't know why. This makes no fucking sense to me. They didn't nerf Vanguard. I think Vanguard's still the most broken trade in the game. Am I mistaken? Am I wrong to think this? There's no Vanguard changes and we're buffing Vanguard units. Hello? Please. What is going on? Am I taking crazy pills? Am I just wrong? Like, isn't 4 Vanguard like one of the best front lines you can have these days? Like 4 Vanguard or Preserver. It's one or the other. It's either you're playing 4 Preserver, or you're playing 4 Vanguard, or you're playing Wukong with Preservers. Right? Am I not crazy? Are those not the 3 best front lines? Why are we not touching Vanguard? But you know, that's just me. That to me that's crazy. I think I think Mordekaiser 3 is still a demon. They didn't touch Mordekaiser. We're on 4-cost champs already. That means that Mordekaiser's fine? I don't think Mordekaiser was fine. But maybe it's because of Syndra. Maybe if we get rid of Syndra and Karma, maybe Mordekaiser will be okay. But still, I think Mordekaiser 3 is Mordekaiser 3. I think if you play anybody in the back line, you won't kill Mordekaiser 3. Maybe I'm crazy for that. We'll see. I might be wrong. Obviously, I'm okay with being wrong. I'd prefer it if I was wrong. Rise, increased spell damage. Rise was in a weird spot. I felt like he never did quite enough. They buffed Scholar by a lot. They buffed his spell damage. I'm down. You know what? Rise carry. I'm down. Rise was on the fringe of being good. Varus buff. This is huge, actually. They took off a whole second off his cast. So this is when he jumps in the air and he throws the bow. I swear, every time I play Varus, I'm screaming at my computer when I'm live. I'm like, Varus, shoot! And he's going to shoot faster now. So I'm happy with that. I think that's a good change. I think Varus damage was really good. I think 5 Pyro Varus is like giga strong even in the current meta. So I think outside of the current meta, like when Syndra's gone, I think there's going to be a lot of room for Varus. They also buffed Blaster. by a lot. Like 4 Blaster is usually what you play with the Varus. Even 2 Blaster is buffed, right? Both of them were buffed. 6 Blaster was also, like, all of Blaster was buffed, right? So like every Varus line that you play is buffed, and he's gonna cast faster. I think that he's gonna be strong now. He was one of the worst 4 costs to play around without the extra Pyro Spat. The comp was kind of locked around Pyro Spat. So, you know, we'll see exactly how this one works out. Sorry, my music stops. I had to tab out for a second. 5 cost champs. 5 AD to Briar is nuts. Remember when, like, last set, like, this is the way you should think about 5 AD. Every unit in history of TFT, maybe not every unit in history, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but almost every time they give a 5 AD buff to a unit, straight up, it makes them go from bottom tier to top tier. And I don't even think Briar was bottom tier. I think Briar is busted. The biggest problem with Briar is that, like, I think people just don't know how to build her properly. So, like, Briar, you just want to build pure damage, right? Pure damage plus Edge of Night. If you get an Edge of Night and a bunch of damage, like Edge of Night Deathblade Briar could carry you to a top 1 already in the current meta. Because she just dives and she just does a shit ton of damage. Briar is very fucking strong. And giving her a 5 AD buff, I swear she's gonna be a problem. But obviously she's a 5 cost, so it's okay if a 5 cost is a problem in my opinion, because it's very hard to get a 5 cost and to fit it on the board. Her synergies are also weird, right? So a lot of times you're playing Briar with 0 synergies, because like Ravenous, you're not really giving away your HP for free unless you're in like a really like good spot to do it. So you're never really like feeding the Briar. That's not like a thing that happens very often. It's very rare circumstance that you're feeding Briar. Eldritch, it's like, yeah, if you're playing Eldritch and Syndra, but now they're nerfing Syndra, it's like, what are the chances you're playing like vertical Eldritch? It doesn't really do that much for your board. It just gives like a unit that stuns, right? And unless you're playing like School Mascot or something crazy like that. And then Shapeshifter isn't that strong of a front line, so a lot of times that you're playing Briar, you're just kind of throwing in a Briar randomly. So it makes sense just to, like, she doesn't perform well because you're not building a board around Briar. It's not like Morgana where she's Preserver and Witchcraft where her traits are really important. You're playing Morgana because of the traits. A lot of times you're playing Briar because she's a 5 cost. You get what I'm trying to say? She doesn't easily fit into every board unless you're like hard committed to that board, right? If you have a pick of any 5 cost and you have a random board in front of you, the chances are you're picking Morgana over her. You're picking another, like, even Diana over her. You're picking Milio over her because it just drops items for everybody, right? There's all these utility units and good synergy units. Her synergies aren't that crazy, and her as a unit, if you don't have items for her, doesn't do that much. So it makes sense that they're buffing her. I'm just saying, if you have a spot for her now, you have a spot for her now, and that seems scary. Items. No, it's my favorite item in the game. They're nerfing Dragon Claw, but it's fine. It was kind of broken. I don't know if Dragon Claw is even going to be good now. They're nerfing the healing by half. So Dragon Claw was like the big thing. Like, this might indirectly nerf a lot of hero augments, because almost every hero augment that you play, you always want to put a Dragon Claw on them for healing. It's always like the best item. And like Nasus, it's like his best item, right? A lot of the time. I don't know, it makes me sad because we'll have to see how it shakes up with everything else, but it might indirectly nerf so many boards now. The Radiant one's also getting nerfed. Blackbeard Glove's artifact is getting nerfed. I don't even think that's needed a nerf, but sure. Mogul's Mail was one of the most broken items in the game, so getting a small HP nerf is pretty good, I would say. I think that it's it just generates so much gold, so yeah, I should get some kind of nerf, which makes sense. Nizui Gem getting cut by 5% in both cases. I think that's good. This gem item now was absolutely a problem. This gem item was like the best support item in the game, so getting nerfs, I think it's warranted and deserved and should be good now. We're on to augments. So let's go through the augments. Beggars can be choosy. This is the one where you get to reroll your augments if you want to hard force something. Go from 4 to 7. I still think this is kind of ass. If you're in a spot where you're just trying to like fish and mill the deck for like the best augment you can get, I don't think this is a good silver augment. Anyways, I'd rather take something else. But I think if you're forced to take it now, you know what I mean? It's like you're taking a non-existent silver augment to have a better chance of hitting like a Giga Exodia augment later. It's like your board has to be very specific to do that, right? The only way I can see that this is good is if you start the game with like 5 Nunus, for example. If you start the game with like 5 Nunus and you see beggars can be choosers, you take it because it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna try my hardest to find Nunu hero augment and win the game for free, you know, like something like that. But it's like, is that really how you want to play TFT? Is that really what we're trying to do here? I don't know. It doesn't seem that good to me. Find your center. This is the one where like the middle unit gains extra HP or Omnivamp. It says no longer offered on 2-1. I think that makes sense. It's really hard to take it on 2-1 without knowing what your comp is. I found this augment was pretty good. I played Find Your Center with a Kali reroll in PBE, and I felt like it was pretty strong because you just like Giga Juice like the unit that you need to Giga Juice and scale your board. So I think it has some uses, especially now that they're buffing the bonus HP. That's pretty good. Item collector. Yeah, this needs a nerf. Good. They cut the HP in half. Item collector is one of the most broken augments at all levels. We're going to probably see a nerf across the field. And keepers. This is something I started doing. I started playing keepers all the time. Keepers is really good with melee comps, but it's just good in general. In the stats, it's just good with everything. So nerfing the shield, really big. It should have been nerfed like it should have been nerfed like last patch, or sorry, last set. It was like the same. It was broken and they didn't nerf it. So yeah, finally, good job. I think that's a good change. 1, 2s, 3s. They're making 1 less 1 cost champ. So I think it was like you gain 3 1 costs, 2 2 costs, and 1 3 costs with this augment. I'm pretty sure. So now it just gives you 1 less gold. I'm not sure how much that changes things. It was always pretty good just to get a bunch of gold from here, from this augment. So I feel like it doesn't change that much, but it does tune it down a little bit, especially since econ is so important. Some of these are like must takes in a lot of situations. On the house, they said, I don't even know what this is. So they removed it. It's like, okay, cool. It doesn't even strike. It was probably so ass that I never even considered it. So yeah, goodbye, I guess. Restart mission. It gives 1 extra 2-star 2 cost. I don't ever think restart mission is a good idea. Unless you're like, this is like a bailout augment. So like, I'm never structuring my game and playing my game around a bailout augment, if that makes sense. But, you know, I guess it helps some people. It might be good if you're somebody who, you know, you try and play like a hard force align and then things don't work out. This might be something that helps you out a lot. Sure. Row Rejuvenation, increasing the Omnivamp. I felt like it was very underpowered. Every time I took Row Rejuvenation, I wish I didn't, because the Omnivamp always felt negligible. So 1% extra, sure, let's take it. We take what we can get. Good change. Gold augments. So Arcane Conduit removed. Good. This was ass. Anybody who played this, it was like an instant bot 4. Like, this one was so difficult to play around. This was the one where Giga juiced your Arcane unit, and you pretty much always had to play it around Ahri, because Ahri was the only one that made sense with it. And if you weren't playing around Ahri, you had to play around Xerath, because like, you're not really gonna Giga juice a Hecarim, and you're not gonna Giga juice a Tahm Kench. So you're either playing Ahri or you're playing a 5 cost, and any augment that says, hey, you gotta play around a 5 cost is pretty ass. It's not good. So then you're forced to play Ahri reroll, and it doesn't even do that much for Ahri. It's like, it was hard to make work. I felt like when you read it, it sounds cool, but when you try to play it, it was not very cool. So they removed it. I think that's good. Just get it out of the pool, because you see that you just have to instant reroll it. So you might as well just remove it, make it easier for everything else. Avenge the Fallen. Avenge the Fallen hasn't been really good. They gave more bonus stats. I think the problem with Avenge the Fallen is like you need 4 units to die. So a lot of times, by the time 4 units die, the game's already over. So I don't know if even giving this much bonus stat, I don't think giving extra bonus stats here from 15 to 18 even matters. Because usually, if you're losing 4 units, it makes sense like in a close fight. Like if you're having a close fight with somebody and you lose 4 units and they lose 4 units, and you get choose your units and you just win the fight every single time. But a lot of times you take this augment, it does nothing to strengthen your board most of the time, because you just get steamrolled. Because somebody else just has like a generic combat that's active the whole time. Like compare it, like you get bonus stats when 4 units die. The other guys have bonus stats the whole fucking round because they picked a better augment. So, you know, do the math. Like, you know, you don't have to call Scooby-Doo to tell us which one's the better augment. So Avenge the Fallen, getting a buff, but hope maybe now it will be better. We'll see. Built differently too. Now exclusive with 2 tanky. No. Oh god, I'm gonna have to release that video today. I have a video doing this. I didn't release it yet. I didn't have time to do the commentary because I was sick all weekend. I was busy. Oh, now I'm feeling better. Okay, later today, like and subscribe. I'm gonna make a video about 2 tanky with built different before they change it, because I want you guys to see how fucking cool it is. But yeah, this makes sense. This is broken. Basically 2 tanky gives a bunch of HP. Built diff basically makes a bunch of HP. When you're playing built diff, it really helps to play the same unit, right? Because with built differently, you want to play units that don't share the same traits. So if you play all the same unit or multiple copies of the same unit, it doesn't activate the traits. So what you can do is you can play 2 tanky, and then you can play double copies of every 4 cost, and then you don't have to hit as many 4 costs, and you just play like, you know, two Nasuses. 2 Nasuses with giga tanky stats. They get giga HP from 2 tanky, and they get giga HP from built diff, and you just win the game for free. So yeah, this had to change. Caramelized Comfort's one of the worst augments in the game. Increase the gold chance by a little bit and increase the HP per item. I don't know if this is gonna make it playable. They didn't buff any of the Sugarcraft units, nor did they buff the Sugarcraft trait. They buffed some of the things around Sugarcraft, but I don't believe in this. I wish they buffed Sugarcraft, but they didn't, so whatever. Clockwork Accelerator, they made the buff frequency every 3 seconds. I felt like Clockwork Accelerator was already pretty good. I took it. It's like an average augment, so this might make it a lot better. Draconic Mastery, removed. This augment fucking blew. This was so bad. Oh, and I'll tell you why. So, like, the main thing is, like, it just didn't make fucking sense. It was just, it was like, I tried it out, and I tried it out once, and I regret it every single time I tried it that first time. But basically, you're playing around the dragon units, right? The dragons are Nomsy, Shyvana, and Smolder. So you make a trait where it buffs the dragon units in particular. That gives you one of 2 options, right? You either have to reroll for Nomsy and Shyvana, or you have to high roll and get to a Smolder. Any augment that says this augment does really, really well if you hit a 5 cost unit is a bad augment, because you cannot guarantee 5 cost unit at all in any game of TFT, because you cannot say to yourself, oh, I'm just going 9. You can't just wake up in the morning and say, oh yeah, this is a fast 9 game. It's like, it's very contingent on what other people are doing. It's very contingent on the rest of your board. Obviously, if you're with a bunch of glue eaters in your lobby and you're like the one player that's like God, right, in any elo, like you can be like the god of iron, the god of bronze, god of gold, I don't care, right? But the thing is, it's like you can't go 9 unless the rest of your lobby is allowing you to greed enough to make it fast 9. And you can't like just guarantee a Smolder. It takes like, you know, do the math. Like there's a website you can do the math. I'll do it another day, but it'll take you like 80-90 gold to hit to have like a 50% chance of hitting. Like you need like 100 gold on level 8 to find 1 copy of a 5 cost that you want on average. Like it is not easy to find a 5 cost early. So now that we said that, so then you have to think about it. So then you either have to make Draconic Mastery busted, then it's going to be like if you whoever randomly hits a Smolder with Draconic Mastery just wins the game for free if you make the augment busted. If you make the units busted, then Shyvana and Nomsy are going to be busted, and with Draconic Mastery, then it's going to be a problem. It's going to be an instant win. So there's like no way to balance it, because you have the RNG of like not being able to get a Smolder, or you randomly hit a Smolder. So they removed it. Good. It made no sense to me. It should have been removed already. That's fine. Endless Hunt, they reworked it. Now it's hunter friendly, and now they get executes. I think that's good. I think they changed the hunter. I think execute is way better than what it already gave, which I think was just like AS and attack damage. So yeah, I think this might be like a vertical hunter thing. Maybe it works out. We'll see. Eternal Growth Plus. Yeah, I gave too much HP. Eternal Growth Plus versus Eternal Growth was kind of nasty, because this 100 HP was actually huge for the shapeshifters. So this is a warranted change. It's just unfortunate because shapeshifters weren't that good to start with, so we get a little bit worse. Explosive Growth Plus, sorry. Explosive Growth Plus, sorry. 11 XP. I think Explosive Growth, the only time I took Explosive Growth is when I really had no other option and I just was trying to level to play something. I think this is fine. I don't see it as being much different, much worse. Fast forward, I don't even know what this is. But this seems like a lot, so maybe this is busted. Fortune favors the bold. They nerfed 8 and 10 lost cash outs by around 10%. And then the 13 to 14 cash outs have been improved. Now, okay, so this makes sense because you should insta win if you get a 13 loss streak. 13 or 14 loss streak makes sense as an instant win, right? It's unfortunate if you're in a lobby and somebody gets that type of thing, but usually that's like means Exodia. That means that they hit Fortune favors the bold into like a Tiniest Titan or a Metabolic Accelerator, that they had some sort of healing every turn. So 13 to 14, I get it. These ones getting nerfed, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at the tables for this when the patch is released and see what the cash outs are now. I don't know how much a 10% nerf warrants, because like they use it in terms of like what expected value is on items, right? So they like treat like, oh, a radiant item is worth this much in their TFT dev logs, right? So when they say 10%, it's like the 8 cash out was a radiant item. What does a 10% nerf mean? So you like you're gonna get a radiant item or not? Like what am I getting now on an 8 loss? That's what I mean. Right? Like an 8 loss is a radiant item. Now what is an 8 loss cash out? What's 10% worse than a radiant item? Am I going to get a component anvil and 50 gold? Like, I don't know. That's what I mean. I need to see what it is before I can make a judgment on how bad it is. But I don't know. I think that like the problem with the radiant item is that sometimes you got giga grief by the radiant item. There's times where I like play the game and I'm playing like an AD line and I get like an AP item and it's like, great, now what the fuck do I do with this radiant item? And it's just like, it's just bad. So I don't know. But obviously that's because it's Fortune, so we'll see. We need to see the new tables before I can make a judgment on how good or bad it is, because it was broken before, even with the bad cash outs. If you're a good player and you can pivot your board well, I think that you were still able to play around it in most situations, so it's fine. Flexible, instead of every day, now the first 3 stages. This is a huge nerf, by the way. Flexible is very, very strong. And then high horsepower buffs. High horsepower is one of the worst augments in the game. So they're buffing it. They buffed every aspect of hero. I'm so happy because now I won't feel bad for my most viewed video being the Lilia hero video. Oh my god, I had such guilt. Every day I look at my YouTube, I'm like, why are people still watching this video? Please don't play high horsepower. Please don't play high horsepower. And now they buffed every aspect of high horsepower. They buffed Lilia. They buffed the Augment. They buffed Fairy. They buffed Bastions. Okay, we're back. My video won't be a lie anymore. Now people will look at it and just think that I was really smart. That's the thing about making TFT content, right? You can make anything and you could be completely wrong. You can say this unit's good, you can say this unit's bad, and you could be completely wrong. But in a couple weeks, they're gonna patch it and then you'll look like a fucking god. You'll be like, damn, this guy was playing high horsepower back 4 weeks ago. He knew this shit was busted. But really, it was not busted. And it was really bad. I don't know what happened out of PB, and I'm sorry, everybody. But, like, guess what? They buffed it now, so we'll take those. Next ones. Oh my god, this is so fucking long. How long is this video? Oh, I feel sorry for you guys. Sorry if you guys are watching this. Watch it on 2x speed if you're not already. I already talk fast, but, you know, like, you'll get used to it. Trust me. Higher education was a bad augment as well. They changed the mana threshold and the AS granted. This is like Rise. This is just a Rise augment, right? Rise wants attack speed. The other ones don't really care that much for attack speed. This is a Rise augment. If you hit this and you just hard force Rise, I think. Item collector, big nerf, good nerf, was broken. Keepers 2, they buffed. Oh no, it's nerf. It's a nerf, they just colored it the wrong color. Okay, this is good. Needed a nerf. Oh, wonderful. Rumble Hero Augment. I said this one was ass. I meant it. I did not like it. Gave him a lot more Omnivamp and more ability damage. The Omnivamp was probably the most important because with Rumble, you really didn't want to build Omnivamp on him, right? So like, and he wasn't healing enough. He would just die too soon. Even with like the Vanguards, a lot of times I'd play Rumble Hero and my Mordekaiser would do more damage and live longer than the Rumble. So giving him more Omnivamp, I think is good. A little bit of ability damage is also good. I'm not sure what the best build path is for him, but usually with the line you played 6 Vanguard because the Vanguard trait was just busted. So you'd play 6 Vanguard and some Mage or Sugarcraft in the back line. Yeah. But I don't know if this is any better. I think Sugarcraft is just too weak for this to be good. Pilfer starts you off with less gold. Pilfer was one of the best augments in the game. Econ augments are really, really strong in this set because the set relies on you buying stuff all the time. So having less starting gold I think is good. I don't know if it nerfs it heavily, but it does help nerf it a lot because it gets your econ not rolling as heavily early on. Practice partners granting mana from 4 to 5. I don't know if this changes anything. I never really took this augment. I have no opinion on it. Press the attack, they nerfed the damage a bit. They had a huge Kassadin nerf. Press the attack was very high performing. I never got it offered a single time in my entire existence of playing TFT, so I don't even know how broken it used to be. I didn't get to experience it firsthand, but I think this is a good change. Rejuvenation 2, making it 1% higher. Omnivamp, same thing applies when I said silver. I think it's good. School mascot no longer has a death cap. Oh my god, this thing has been busted for so long. So if you don't know, I'm sure you saw school mascot and you're like, this shit's busted. How'd they let this release? School mascot used to have 3 items. They removed one of the items, and I said, watch, this shit's still gonna be busted. And it was still busted. And then I'm like, watch, they're gonna remove another item. And they fucking removed another item. This poor son of a bitch is only gonna have 1 item. He used to have 3. Oh my god, that's funny. So now he only has like a death he only has Death's Defiance, right? That's the only item left on him, right? It's Death's Defiance, right? I think so. But it gets more bonus HP and more bonus AP, so maybe it compensates, but not really. What have they done to my boy? It's so funny, but it needed a nerf, so good change. Spell Blades. Less AP, good nerf. This was like a really big enabler of like Zoe reroll, but you know, of course that's fine. Support Golem no longer offered on 2-1. I think that's a good change. I think Support Golem was just way too strong. It gave you like a whole ass fucking unit. You basically 5 streak for free if you got it on 2-1. So yeah, good change. Sweet Tooth nerf. This is big. Sweet Tooth should get a nerf in my opinion. It just starts with less bonus HP. That's actually huge. 100 HP basically means your Nunu has to kill 3 more units. 3 more units is a lot for Nunu, especially early game. So this makes it way more snowbally, and it makes it pretty much that you need a good spot for Sweet Tooth now. You can't just pivot into it, kind of like I do in a lot of cases. Nunu damage really doesn't scale hard unless you have like a lot of the damage. Now they did nerf Kog'Maw, which I think helps Sweet Tooth indirectly because Kog'Maw would kill steal the Nunu a lot of the time. But good change. I think that's one of the best ways you can treat that Augment without adjusting anything. 3s are crowd. I can't see if it's a buff or a nerf, so we'll just hope for the best. And then Trait Tracker is now exclusive with Flexible. That makes sense. That was like a Giga Exodia, right? If you hit Trait Tracker into Flexible or Flexible into Trait Tracker, you just got Giga juiced. Augments 404. Too healthy, nerfed. Vertically inclined. Buffed, which makes sense, but no longer offered on 2-1. Not offered on 2-1 is awkward. Vertically inclined is hard to play because a lot of people that just don't have good boards. I think vertically inclined into like built different is like a Giga Exodia that I never hit. I don't know if they're exclusive with each other. Like one doesn't show up at the other, so we'll see. Witchy Wallop, this one was pretty bad as a hero augment, so they're increasing the damage and they're decreasing the time between the wallops. That's actually huge. It's like right on the fringe of being good. The problem is Witchy Wallop, you really want to play vertical witchcraft, and it's really hard to like find a Morgana later. But if you have a good spot for it now, probably a lot better. And with the Zoe reroll line, Scholar changes, Rise changes, you might be able to play Witchy Wallop into like the 4 Bastion, 4 Scholar line, just have like a Giga extra unit, right? Worth the wait, round delay by 2. Worth the wait was pretty bad, just because like waiting 4 rounds and then getting a bunch of units, it was often very like shit. So decreasing it by 2 rounds makes it a lot more viable in my opinion, so I think that's pretty good. Prismatics, anger issues. This was a pretty shit augment. I still think it's shit. They're giving more armor and MR. They're increasing it by 5. I don't know how good it is. I think the problem with anger issue is that you can never build shred or anti-heal. So you have to rely on a unit to have shred or anti-heal, which means that you're forced to play certain lines. So like, for example, with shred, you have to play around Syndra. And for anti-heal, you have to play dragons. So a lot of times you only played anger issue with Cassiopeia reroll, playing around Shyvana with Syndra and having a high roll situation. But if you don't play those, then you have to forsake all of those stats, and then it doesn't warrant it. It doesn't warrant having that many Guinsus, because nobody really needs that many Guinsus in a game. So it was kind of awkward. Assassin's Toolbox gives a Prowler's Claw an Infinity Edge right away. I don't know how broken this is. I feel like it was pretty bad for a Prismatic, so I didn't really like it. At what cost? Bonus XP is 8. That's good. I felt like at what cost was really fucking annoying because somebody would hit it and then they would just go straight to level 7. And being level 6/level 7 in a meta where there was a lot of like level 6 rerollers and stuff like that, you just had so many extra units that you could preserve so much HP that was almost guaranteed a top 4. So I think not having as much bonus XP means you can't be level 7 on stage 2, right? That's the big change that it does. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but that, like, a lot of times you would have just enough gold, you'd win the first 3 rounds, and after carousel you'd be level 7. And it's like, bro, like, I have fucking 4 units on my board, this jackass is level 7. It's like there's no way you're ever beating him. So it often converted to like an instant win because they were like level 8 on stage 3. Like, it just stockpiled really heavily. Keeping it mitigated, like making it so that like the max level they are is level 6, and like doing anything besides that would destroy their econ too heavily. It actually makes the augment a lot more balanced. I don't think it was a good augment anyways. It was very situationally good, but it's like if you had like a good opener, like you had like a couple unit upgrades and you had a lot of gold, taking it was like busted. But obviously good change, I think. Dark Alley dealings, delay down from 5 to 3, good. This one seems like a really good augment, but I feel like the turn delay was so big because a lot of times you'd hit it later in the game and then it would have a turn delay and you'd be like, oh shit, and then like you wouldn't get your item and it would be pretty bad. So having the turn delay decrease is pretty good. Giant and Mighty, yeah, it was really busted. Decreasing the starting HP I think helps to deal with that, but I don't think it makes it like unclickable. Same with the movable object. Small change, relatively, but I think it's still a really good augment. Prismatic ticket, no longer offered on 4.2 is huge. I love that. This was one of the biggest bailout pieces of shit augments ever. There's so many times I see it on 4.2, and then somebody just has prismatic ticket. They just hit their whole board, and I'm just like slamming my desk. Really, really good. I hate bailout augments, and this was one of them. And then 50 to 45%. Sure, that's a substantial change when you're rolling for like a lot of stuff, but like, you know, I don't really care. I try not to ever take this if I can. Support Golem no longer offered on 4.2. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't really care. Makes sense. What the Forge, it gives more HP. I just don't see how much, but it seems like a lot because this number starts with a 1 and this number starts with a 2. So like, holy shit. But What the Forge is just bad. The reason What the Forge is bad is because there's too many Ornn artifacts now, and there's not enough generic artifacts. So like, imagine if you get like a bunch of Ornn artifacts that you can't slam on any units, right? Like, let's say you get like Prowler's Claw and like one of the ones that deals with shield and like something else. It's like, what the fuck are you gonna do with that shit? It's like you can try and pivot your board, but if you're not like, if you don't have a good econ that you're like level 8, level 9, it's very hard to like flex into a different board, right? It's very hard to like sell units that are upgraded, upgrade other units. Like, it's very hard to do those changes late game, and playing around stuff early game, it's very hard because it's like, if you're like, okay, I have AP items, I'll make AP items, and What the Forge hits, and it's like you get dragon, you get like Prowler's Claw. It's like, well, I'm playing AD, I'm playing AP, I have nothing to do with this AD item, and then you get another AD item, you get another AD item, you get another AD item. It's like, well, I should have just played AD from the start. And then you run into the situation of like, you can't like hedge your bets either way. You just have to try and play around like the first artifact you hit and hope that you have like an Exodia and you hit like the other stuff later. I don't think this will ever be very good unless there's like a particular line where all of the items are clickable. Something like warriors or mages, or some kind of preserver line where you have both AD and AP carries that makes it very pliable. Like, okay, if I get anything that's an AD item, like melee AD AP, like I think like maybe warriors would be good, because that way any AP items you get, you just put on like a Gwen, you put on a Katarina. Any AD items you get, you just put on like Fiora, you put on like Nyla. Any like tank items you get, you put on a Rakan, you put on, like, you know what I mean? Like something like that is what you need. So maybe you click this if you're playing warriors, it might be good. We'll see. Augment small. So Bastion Crown now gives a Shen instead of a Nunu. Who the fuck's Shen? Shen's in the set? What? Who's Shen? Am I nuts? Bastions. Bastions. There's no Shen. Is there a Shen? I'm confused. Blaster Crown gives a Tristana. Who's the 3-star Bastion? Oh, there is a Shen. Oh, Shen. Okay. I'm losing it, chat. I've been talking too long. I'm sorry. Scholar Crown gives a Bard. Spirit Shojin is pretty good. This is pretty good now. Blaster Crown gives an Ezreal. Blossoming Lotus no longer offered on 2-1. That's good. I feel like these augments aren't very good on 2-1. Usually want combat later in the game. Oh, there's new charms. Okay, we're almost done. New charm, Copycat. 1 gold, stage 2 or 3. Gain a 1-star copy of the first enemy unit that you die. 1 gold is pretty good. 1 gold for 1 gold. So this is neutral. This is just a charm that you always buy. That seems broken. It seems like a charm you always buy. It's just do you get the copy? Can you sell it in time? I guess it might not be gold neutral, but we'll see. Ironclad Spirit. Next combat, your team gains 30 armor. These as 1 gold are pretty good. And they're stage 4 plus. 30 MR. Seems interesting. Swarm spawn. 4 gold, 5 thing. Your front 2 units spawn a voidling after death. This seems really big. That seems huge. All of these seem like really good charms that you would probably always buy. Back row star. 5 gold to 2 gold. Desperate plea removed. I don't know what any of these are. Gear swap is removed. Isn't that the one that gives you a remover? This is too much for me. Oh, great. Where's the charms? Okay. I know Gear Swap is the magnetic remover one. This is huge because this was one of the best things to hit. So not getting able to have a remover or a thing, it restructures the whole way you play the game, right? Minor Gambit, 3 gold for winning, that's fine. That's the one where if you win, you get gold. The Shivmate one, they're offering it earlier, that's fine. Summon Dragon, nerfing it. The Star, costing less gold is huge. That's a really strong one. Tinker, I don't know what this is. Treasure Party, that's the one that gives you the treasure chest that we're making it less gold. So a lot of charms are just getting less gold or being less gold. I don't know what Desperate Plea is, and I'm pretty sure Gear Swap being removed is like the most depressing thing I've ever seen. Because like you would play the game around the idea that you would probably hit Gear Swap. That's the way I play the game. I'll slam items and I'll say I'll probably hit Gear Swap at one point in this game if I have to sell these items. In the worst case scenario, I'll just sell the unit and transfer the items. Right? That's the way I would usually play the game. It's like at one point in the game, I'll find Gear Swap, and if I need to transfer items, I could use that to fix my items. So if I had like subpar items, like not BIS items, I would still slam them early because it's like, you know, like I'll find a better item for my carry later, hopefully, but I don't want to lose HP now. If they remove Gear Swap, I'm depressed. Like that was my favorite charm by far. I felt like it rewarded you playing around like your board really nicely. Unless Gear Swap is just one of the versions of that, and there's other versions that are equally good. I don't know. Hyper Roll. I don't care about Hyper Roll. Are we done? Bug fixes. These use damage amp stats. Sure. Fix cases where Gwen could fail to cast. Yes. Yes, that was a problem. I know of that. Callista no longer throws extra spheres on her first attack each combat. I don't know about that. Portal Flex no longer miss when an allied Krug is the only unit alive. I don't know about this. 2 ranged units with tiny but deadly will no longer fail to attack each other. I don't know about that either. Placing Thieves on a unit with a hero augment no longer removes the buff from them. I didn't know about that. Combo's gloves will now correctly count as 2.5 items for the purpose of strong hits unit. Okay, I did not know about that. Yumi can no longer spawn on the enemy side of the board and eat the unit in that slot. I didn't know about that. Yumi now correctly attach the new unit to combat star if the host was sold. Okay, I didn't know about that. Fixed a bug where frost statues could fail to spawn or spawn with incorrect health. I didn't know about that. Assassin's Charm now properly shows a stealth effect on the unit that will leak during combat. Oh, okay, I knew about that, but I didn't know it was a bug. I thought they just didn't let us know. The Buncho Belts Charm now properly makes champion larger when equipped. Okay, I didn't care about that. In Hyperroll, I don't care. Overshield Portal will now properly show all charms a stage earlier. I didn't even know that was bugged. Okay, that makes sense though. Are we done? Oh, we're done! Chat, make sure to like and subscribe if you like this video. I know it's very long. This is a big patch. Main takeaways. Vanguards are still strong. They didn't nerf Mordekaiser. They buffed Wukong. Those are the big unit changes. Augments, I think I agree with every augment change. Every augment change felt fine. Items, Declaw is really bad now. Don't build Declaw unless, or maybe build Declaw in certain situations, but be ready that it's going to be shit. Blasters are better. I think Varus is going to be much better. And yeah, that's everything. See ya.